He conquered the known world, won every battle he ever fought. But his grave? Over 2,300 years later, no one knows where Alexander the Great is buried. The Romans couldn't find it. Modern archaeologists still search. What was once seen by emperors is now called the Lost Tomb of Alexander, history's greatest unsolved puzzle. This isn't just a history mystery. If we find his tomb, it could rewrite what we know about ancient power and politics. So, was he really buried in Egypt? Or was it all a political illusion? He wasn't born a conqueror. He was raised to become in the royal palace of Macedonia. A boy named Alexander was never treated like an ordinary child. From the age of 7, he was being trained for greatness. His father, King Philip II, was a brutal warrior and strategist. He wanted his son to not only rule, but also reshape the world. So he brought in a name that would shape history forever: Aristotle. Under Aristotle's guidance, Alexander the Great studied ethics, politics, science, and warfare. He read Homer's Iliad like a soldier reads a war manual. And from those pages, he built his earliest dreams of conquest. He learned diplomacy with words and dominance with the sword. While other boys played, he was mastering strategy and philosophy. By 13, his intellect was sharper than most men twice his age. His curiosity was endless, and his ambition unmatched. Everything he saw, he wanted to understand or command. Early life of Alexander wasn't just education. It was preparation for empire. But behind every lesson, there was a pressure to outdo his father, not just inherit power, but justify it. And this pressure would soon ignite the rise of Alexander the Great. This is where the legend truly began. But what came next would separate the man from the myth. That journey begins with war. At just 16, he was leading armies, not as a prince watching from the back, but the front lines, sword drawn. This wasn't ceremony. This was real war. When his father was away, he crushed a rebellion on his own. And to make a point, he founded a city named after himself, Alexandropolis. This was the first taste of power for Alexander the Great. T20. Philip II was assassinated. Within days, Alexander was declared king, but not everyone accepted him. Tribes and rivals rose immediately to challenge. He didn't hesitate. He burned Thebes to the ground. A message to all of Greece: obey or be erased. That single act silenced the nation and unified it. Now, with Greece behind him, he looked eastward, towards Persia, the world's greatest empire at that time. Many thought it was madness, but he had something they didn't: unmatched strategy and ruthless focus. Military genius of Alexander was about to be tested on the world stage. That he knew the risks. He didn't care. For him, conquest wasn't a goal, it was a duty, and so began the campaign that would shock history. His first major battle was against a force twice his size, Granicus River. Persian generals thought they'd crush him easily, but Alexander the Great didn't follow their rules. He rewrote them, but he led the charge himself, nearly dying in the process. But the Persians were defeated, shocked by his aggression. This was just the beginning of his conquest of Persia. Next came the Battle of Issus. 100,000 Persians versus 40,000 Greeks. Alexander struck the heart, directly attacking King Darius. Darius fled, leaving behind his army and his own family. Instead of revenge, Alexander showed mercy. He treated Darius's mother like royalty. This wasn't just war, it was psychological dominance. Every city he entered, he studied their culture. He didn't just conquer, he blended. That's why he wasn't just feared, he was admired. His final test in Persia came at Gaugamela, at a battlefield so vast, it looked endless. Alexander the Great used the terrain like a weapon and crushed Darius for good. The Persian Empire collapsed. In just a few years, Alexander ruled more land than anyone before him. But this victory was just the middle of the story. He had conquered the world, but couldn't survive a fever. In 323 BCE, Alexander the Great fell ill in Babylon. He suffered for 12 days, and then silence. And sword touched him. No enemies stood near. The man who never lost a battle, lost to something invisible. His generals asked, Who should rule after you? He whispered, to the strongest. Those 3 words broke his empire into pieces. But the real question, what killed him? Some say it was natural, a tropical disease. Others believe it was murder by his own men. Even today, the death of Alexander is unsolved. What's even stranger? His body didn't decay for 6 days. Ancient records say it looked untouched, glowing, even. That one fact turned a tragedy into a history mystery. His body was to be buried in Macedonia, but it never reached there. Someone hijacked the coffin mid-route. Ptolemy, one of his generals, took it to Egypt. There, the body vanished into the sands of time, and with it, the last truth of Alexander the Great. For centuries, historians believed his tomb was in Alexandria. Roman emperors like Caesar and Augustus claimed to have visited it. But today, no one knows where the body is. Over time, earthquakes and wars buried ancient Alexandria. Temples vanished, and with them, clues to the tomb. The lost tomb of Alexander became archaeology's greatest cold case. Some believe it still lies under modern Alexandria. But the city is dense, built layer upon layer. Excavating it would risk collapsing everything. Above, other theories point to Siwa, Oasis, or even Venice. But no evidence has ever confirmed any of them to this day. It's a haunting history mystery. And maybe that's how Alexander wanted it to rule the world, then vanish from it in grave. No end, just legend. His story began with power, it ended with silence. And the world is still listening that an king left a bigger mark on history. Yet no king left behind a more mysterious trace. The search for Alexander the Great is still not over.